Hello there, weary traveler. You've arrived at a quiet place far away from the noise of the day. Tonight I'll take you on a gentle journey through time, back to the Middle Ages, to explore the lives of the humble folk who lived not in castles or cities, but in little wooden cottages nestled in the countryside. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine yourself walking down a narrow, muddy lane, past old stone fences and whispering trees. The air is crisp, and the soft hush of falling snow surrounds you. It's winter now, and we are visiting the simple world of medieval peasants as they brace themselves each year for the long, cold season. Let the warmth of your blanket become the hearth fire, and let history lull you gently to sleep. Long before the first frost, peasant families began to prepare. In the waning warmth of autumn, fields once green with barley and rye turned gold and brown. Entire villages came together for the harvest. Woven baskets were filled with root vegetables, parsnips, onions, turnips, the sort of crops that stored well in the cold months. Grains were milled and stored in cloth sacks. Cabbages were hung upside down from rafters. Apples and herbs were dried and tied with string. There were no supermarkets, of course. Each bite through winter had to be planned. Food was not just nourishment, it was security. Once the fields were bare, tools were cleaned and stored away in barns. The livestock, chickens, pigs, and sometimes a cow, were brought close to home. In many cases, they shared the same space as the family, huddled together under one roof for warmth. Cottages were small and dark with low ceilings and thick wooden beams. Their walls were daubed with a mix of clay and straw, and thatch covered the roofs. Doors were thick and drafty, but woven rugs or furs helped keep the cold out. Children would gather firewood daily, stacking it carefully beside the hearth. Every twig and branch was precious. Without fire, the cold would creep in too quickly. As winter deepened, the world outside grew still. Snow blanketed the land like a soft quilt, muffling the usual noises of daily life. The peasant cottage became the center of the universe. Inside, the fire crackled gently. It was not large, just enough to cook over and keep the edge of the cold at bay. A small iron pot hung from a hook above the hearth. Soups and stews were the most common meals, thick with barley, cabbage, dried peas, and sometimes bits of salted pork or preserved fish. Beds were simple, just straw-filled mattresses laid across wooden frames, with woolen blankets or animal hides for cover. Families slept close together for warmth, often with the youngest tucked in the middle. People rose and rested with the sun. The days were short and quiet. Tasks were smaller now, mending clothes, carving wooden tools, weaving baskets, or spinning wool by hand. Evenings were long, and storytelling was the hearth's companion. Elders told tales of ancient kings, mythical creatures, and saints who watched over the land. It was a time for memory and imagination. Staying warm was a daily struggle. Clothing was layered: linen undergarments, woolen tunics, and heavy cloaks if one could afford it. Mittens were rare, but hands were wrapped in cloth or tucked under cloaks. Feet wore simple leather shoes, often stuffed with straw for insulation. Windows were covered with cloth or oiled parchment to keep the drafts out. Many cottages had no chimney, only a hole in the roof for smoke to escape. This made the air inside smoky, but also warm and heavy, like a woolen blanket over the lungs. Children and elders were most vulnerable to the cold. Warm drinks made from boiled herbs or thin gruel helped ease the chill. Some families kept a warm stone by the fire and wrapped it in cloth to place at the foot of the bed. Yet even with all this effort, the cold was always present, pressing through the walls, biting through gaps, lingering in the corners of the room. Even in hardship, there was celebration. Around midwinter, many villages observed a period of festivity, a way to lift the spirit in the heart of the coldest days. Yule was one such tradition, especially in northern regions, blending older pagan customs with the growing influence of Christianity. Folk would gather to share what they could: bread, small gifts, a song or a prayer. If a family had a goose or a hen to spare, It might be roasted and shared. Candles were lit, and green branches from evergreen trees were brought inside, symbols of life enduring through the frost. Though modest, these gatherings brought warmth to the soul. A moment of laughter, of gratitude, and of hope that the sun would soon return. Much of winter was simply waiting, waiting for the ground to thaw, waiting for the sun to linger, waiting for the familiar signs of life to return. The first sprout of green, the trickle of meltwater down the road, the birdsong at dawn. The peasant year was circular, and winter was its deep breath, a pause before motion returned. It was a time of patience, a time of reflection. Many found peace in the slowness. It allowed the soul to rest. In a world without clocks or schedules, the body moved as nature intended. And so, by the firelight, with snow tapping gently on the rooftop, the villagers dreamed of spring. Now, dear listener, let your breath grow slower, your thoughts softer. You've walked the muddy lanes, gathered wood, and sat beside the hearth. You've shared bread with kind faces, and heard stories echo through smoky beams. The world of the medieval peasant may have been cold, but it was full of quiet resilience, of gentle routine, of humble beauty. Let the hush of that snowy world carry you now into rest. The fire crackles low, the wind outside has quieted, and all that remains is the warmth of your blanket and the peace of a time long past. Good night, and sleep well.